Okay, we have a 65 Gallaxie. We installed a new engine, new everything pretty much. New rotors, brakes, new transmission, redid the rear end. But as you can see, it put new brakes and everything on it. And you can see it's really nice. Lined out all the lines. It has every new line in it that was metal. Replaced all lines, all rubber lines, all metal lines. We installed some gauges inside for oil pressure and water temperature. That's sweet. And it was everything on it's new. Pretty much looking at a brand new 65 Gallaxie.
On this Chevelle, we started masking it this morning for primer. We still had a few places to sand, some final sand on some filler jobs, and final sand on the paint. Anything that needed to be touched up, we touched up. Then we masked it all off. After we got all that done, it had to be wiped down, blown down, wiped down, and cleaned up. And then put epoxy primer on the top since it was down to bare metal, and on the top of the quarter and on the top of the doors it got epoxy primer. Had to let that sit for 1 hour, and then Hunter sprayed this is the primer surfacer. He sprayed this, and that took a few hours to do that. Got the whole car, well basically the whole car except for the hood and the deck lid. We're going to water sand them later on. And then after he got all that done and it flashed off, I took some rattle can spray paint and I dusted it so that we could sand it, and the black is going to soak into any scratches or any small dents that we didn't get, and show us if we missed anything, it'll show us. If we didn't, it'll all come off in the blocking, and that's that. So.
Alright, working on this Demon. Getting ready to take the carburetor off. I got it all loose here. We're putting a Sniper EFI system on it. Had to take all the fuel cell out of it, all the fuel lines. Other than that, it's just basic stuff. We just take stuff off and put new stuff on.
On this panel van, we had to do body work all on this side, a patch welded right here, and a big patch welded in the back, and that all had to be filled in and smoothed out after it was glassed, and had to build up another lip on it right here. It's got body work on the corner, right through here, right through here, and right through here, and a little bit up through here, and over. And this has got like here, all the way across and down. The whole top, it's almost all body work up here. And we got that done, and this is in the first prime right here. We will probably reprime this after we block it. He's going to spray it with the black spray paint like we did the Chevelle, so that we can find anything that's wrong with it. And we're going to do the spray the top and this and sand it. And we have still yet got the cowl. It's standing right here. We're doing it a section at a time since it's so big. Cowl, and I think there's a few soft dents up here, and then basically we're going to epoxy prime this and put the surfacer on top of it. We did epoxy prime the top and all the bare metal on this before we put the surfacer on. The doors have been primed, blocked, and reprimed, except for there's a couple of them. A fender over there, a back door, and a front fender. It was on its first prime. We're going to block them and reprime them. Everything else can be wet sanded. Now on this side over here, walk around. We masked off all the openings to keep everything up, kind of keep everything from the inside, because we got wooden panels in the back that's going to have to be sanded and stained and clear urethane. But we got this body work to do down to this patch. Anything in between that body work right there. There's some body work to do. There's a sill step up underneath of here. It's going to have to be body work. And that'll be it. Then after everything's primed, we're going to fit the doors back on. And we're going to fit the fenders on, make sure everything matches the way it should. Then take them back off, and we'll spray the fenders and the doors separately from this. And that's about it on this. The top color, the silver, has already been sanded for repaint. We had some body work to do on the front part of the hood. There's a little palm dent there. And anything we found where the paint was flaking or bad spots in the paint, we sanded them out and put a little primer on it. So basically this is ready for just to finish off the primer, sand it, clean it up, mask it, and paint the top. And there's a couple of little places in the black on both sides that's going to have to be blended and shot. And that'll be it for this. So that's about it. We got a lot of work to do to the panel still yet, but it's come a long way. I mean, it ain't going to take as long to finish the body up as it did to get this far with it. So.
Hi everybody, this is Fred from Good Fellaz. A little update on the Bronco here. We've been working on. Still doing some of the wiring. We've run into a few problems that weren't anticipated. But for the most part, we got the wiring almost done. We ran into a problem with the brake booster. We got to figure out what we need to do with that. Other than that, it's getting closer. It's getting done little by little. That's all. Here's a panel van, C10 panel van we've been working on. We put a lowering kit in it for the suspension. Got the motor all hooked up, the transmission all done, ready to go. We took it out for a test drive. It runs good now. Hopefully we'll get it out of here real soon.
What we're doing here is a 49. It's tied in with the panel van. And what we're doing here is cab corners. And we're going to be doing, we did bracing on the inside. It was so rotted out that it had actually kind of concaved. So we had to spread it back out and do bracing so the doors open and shut right. They were actually jammed together. And so we spread it out, braced everything up underneath, rebuilt the cab, put the cab corners on. Now we'll be starting on the floor. Okay, I got a call from a customer we've done some work for, and he took his car to another shop. And he was upset that it cost so much. And once he started explaining what was going on, it totally made sense. The shop is very justified. And so I just wanted to go over some things again and try to explain the process for people bringing cars to a shop or bringing them to our shop. It doesn't matter where they go, but how the industry kind of works. When a car is new and hand built even, it costs hundreds of thousands to do. And what we do is take a car that's been abused for 30 to 90 years. Then we have to take where 40 or 50 people have worked on it and take all the rusted, bent up pieces and the hidden issues, and then we take them all apart piece by piece, and then we can see what we have and what we have to get new, what we can restore, and really then you find out what you have. So one thing that might work good in how to explain it is, say you're going to build a house. And that house, you give them a blueprint and how it's designed, and you pay for the blueprints and the architects and engineers to design that house. And then he gives you a price what it costs to build. Then if you do changes or upgrades, that's another cost entirely. Now, more in our industry, we'll stay with that same builder thing, but say you bought took that same builder to a new place that built your house, and you said, okay, I bought this abandoned house, it's in rough shape, I want you to take it apart piece by piece, and then once we discover what we need, fix what you can, replace what has to be replaced, and then we're going to reconstruct it. But we're not going to reconstruct it like it was. We're going to add an addition here and an addition there. We're going to totally change the foundation of it, and then we're going to add a third floor. And that's a lot of times what we do to these cars. Now, the other thing that adds a lot of cost, and this is what that phone call was about, the builder has almost your whole house completed. Then you go, I want a rooftop pool on the top. That totally changes what the cost is going to be at the end. It totally changes how it's built. It totally changes the time frame. And so, again, what we do is take parts that are 30 to 90 years old. Then we design a car. A lot of times say they came with 6 cylinders. They came with rear ends that can't go down the freeway anymore, things like that. So we take what's actually body panels and build a car around that to give you what you want today. Now there's some really well-known shops, and one in particular, it's a $250,000 deposit to get on a 3-year waiting list, and they do spectacular builds, but you better be willing to spend $1 million or close to $1 million. The people that can afford them cars are not bad with money. They got their money because they're very smart with their money, but they also realize what it costs to build them cars. And now the primary cost of a build happens way before it ever gets here. It's when you go to buy that car. Is it in good shape? Is it in bad shape? It doesn't matter if you spent $5 or if you spent $50,000. That's going to dictate your cost. Some of the other things that dictate your cost are the modifications you want. Do you want a modern drivetrain put in? Do you want frames? Do you want axles? Do you want a custom paint job? Things like that. And then what also matters a lot is we get a vision from the customer, and that's what we have to go off of. That's our blueprint. Now we'll start doing a build, and the customer in the middle of the build sees something they want. It might have been an easy process if we knew at the beginning of the build, but now at this point in the build, half the project has to come back apart, say, to do that one little thing. And that really adds to your cost. So that's something to keep in mind too. But really the customer dictates price when they go to buy the vehicle. If that's the most important thing. If you investigate the vehicle you're doing, it can be a big help. If you spend, like I say, $5, $500, $5,000, $50,000, it doesn't matter. What matters is the condition of the vehicle you're bringing in. And it's very easy if it takes $50,000 just to get that project back to where it can be built and in good shape, that you're going to spend $100,000 with modifications. If you buy a car in good shape and you want modifications, it might be $10,000 or less. It could be, maybe even $1,000 depending on what you wanted. That's all dictated before it gets here, and it's dictated by the purchaser, not by us or by that, any other shop. Now the other thing, like I said, the second thing that dictates it is the modifications, and when you decide to add the modifications, the changes. If there's change orders, that's one thing. If you're going to put on different wheels, that's not a big deal. But if we build a car and then at the last moment you want a different engine, you want, say, air conditioning, you want something else, at different stages there's different levels of how difficult that is. It can be very easy, it can be, very hard too. So you really dictate the price of your investment. You can have a cool ride for $1 million. You can have a cool ride for $100,000. You can have a cool ride for $30,000. But it starts with when you purchase that vehicle, what kind of shape it's in. There's a reason, let's go with modern cars. You can buy a $1,000 beater, or you can buy a $50,000 used pickup. That $50,000 used pickup is going to be in a lot better shape than that $1,000 beater, of course. Now, with classic cars, it's a little different because you can find deals out there. But when you need, say, $20,000, $30,000 in reconstructing the body of that car just to get it to the point where you can do something, that makes it very difficult. We have another build in here right now, a panel van that we found 110 gallons of stuff in between and outside the body. You can't leave that there. We found tears, rips, dents that have been all covered up over 50, 60 years. Then we added another project to that build. We added 3 frames instead of 1 frame. We're custom building a frame. We're putting on a 9-inch rear axle. We're doing a fuel injection. We're doing wheels, interior. You know, all that stuff adds up, and it changed along the way. So it's really difficult that way to do it, because what happens is you got to go back and change things you've already done. And then now we have 2 projects instead of 1. We have 3 frames instead of 1. You know, there's a lot of different things that add up. So of course that is something that's going to cost quite a bit of money. And that one in particular, the body was shot. I mean, and it was shot worse than we thought initially. Like I say, tears and dents and holes that were covered up over 50 years. So it takes hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours just to get the body to the point where it can go in primer. Where if you buy something with a good body, it can go in primer right away. It can go in paint right away. It just depends on the stages. You know, we have a Demon in here that was bought right, and he's doing all kinds of modifications. Expensive wheels, tires, Holly sniper system. He's doing all kinds of things to that vehicle. He's not going to spend very much because he bought the vehicle right. So it's all determined by the buyer before it gets here, or the purchaser of the vehicle. If you buy cars unseen, there was another one here, a Roadrunner, and he actually did spend a little bit of money on the vehicle, but he bought it online, and the person he bought it from wasn't honest. And so that vehicle got here, he had less than a shell of a vehicle. I mean, everything was destroyed and shot on this vehicle, parts missing everywhere. And so he spent a substantial amount of money just in parts to get that. Then you have all that labor on top of that. And so what that can do, say on that vehicle in particular, you know, when you spend 80 to 90,000 in labor and parts and, you know, that kind of thing, if the vehicle's only worth 50,000, it's only worth 50,000, and that's back to the purchase again. Let's go back to that Demon. You buy a vehicle, and with all the modifications, you only have 30 grand into it, and it's a $50,000 car. So you really have to look at the cars you're thinking of buying for a classic car, just like you would a regular car. You probably wouldn't buy a 1983 Yugo for a family car to take to California. So when you're looking at new or classic cars, really don't have your dream goggles on. Be realistic about it. Realistic about what it's going to take. Realistic about changes. If you decide you want a custom frame, for instance, right there can be $15,000 to $20,000 depending what you want. So you have to be realistic about what you want. For instance, when you go to look at cars, you might like a Rolls Royce, a Maserati, a Mercedes, but they're expensive cars, and they can be even expensive to maintain. So you decide, well, maybe an Impala is more what I should be getting. And it's the same with classic cars. There's ways to do light restorations. We have a Chevelle downstairs. We're doing a light restoration too. And that whole project for the body will be less than $10,000. And that's a body work, that's a priming, that's a painting, everything else. Then you have, you know, where, like I say, that panel van, it would take way more time. It's taken us months and months just to get it to the point it can get in primer. So I understand the phone call I got about the other shop, but again, when you buy a vehicle, you've already decided the end price to do that vehicle, whether you realize it or not. When you add modifications, especially when you're talking frames, you're talking additional projects, you're talking all this other stuff, new rear ends, new front ends, suspension, engines, injection, all that kind of stuff all adds up. And then lastly, try to get a vision for the project before you start it. It is really difficult when a project's all painted up, all done, just ready to button everything up, and there's a major mechanical change, like say switching from a more old school engine to a new school engine, that you've just doubled or tripled the price of your build. So I hope this helps, and I hope it helps for when you're out looking at new classic vehicles. Thank you very much.